Hi, this is Ashwath Raj. This video is going to be on understanding different charts. Why and when we use a particular chart. Under what business case or use case we use a particular chart. This concept is very important for any dashboard developers. I'm utilizing Tableau for the current demonstration. The tool doesn't matter. It is just used as a platform. The understanding of the concept is what is the crux of the whole video. Let's get started. The first chart which I'm going to show you is the bar chart. The bar chart is used when you want to compare the values for different fields. By fields I mean I have a subcategory column here and copiers, phones, accessories. These are the different fields. That is the terminology which I'm currently using for the video. Bar chart is primarily used when you want to compare the values. Whenever there is comparison, the best chart to be used is the bar chart. Why? That is because when you are comparing the values, the size, the human brain understands the size comparison much faster than doing comparison on other methods. For example, you can do comparison based on colors. Whenever the value is high, you can show it in red. Whenever it is low, you can show it in green. But more than that, based on the size, the human brain understands the comparison much better. Let's take a use case. You can see that copiers has a profit of 55,000 and storage has 21,279. Let me remove the label now. Even without looking at the label, I can see that storage has somewhere close to 50% of the profit value of copiers. So even without looking at the absolute number, that is the absolute profit value, just by looking at the size difference, I can understand that it is somewhere close to 50% of the profit of copiers. This is how the bar chart, and this is why the bar chart is used, that is for comparing the values. Before I move on to the next chart, I want you to understand something. I have one dimension and one measure. Just understand that measure is anything that can be aggregated, that is sum, average, median, any kind of aggregation that can be done or that involves numbers, that would be a measure. Dimensions are like you can see in the list. It involves most of the string values, date values, so on and so forth. Measure involves all the numbers primarily. The next chart also belongs to the bar chart family. This one is called the stacked chart. Let me create the chart first. Okay. This is the bar chart. I have not yet created the stacked chart. You can see here that I have used one dimension and one measure here. So I am able to compare what is the profit for each subcategory. Similarly, here I am able to compare what is the sales for each subcategory. In stacked chart, I can bring in one more dimension saying, now I have added region. So I want to see for each in each subcategory, how the sales has been for each region. Therefore, two dimensions are involved. Here in the simple bar chart, one dimension and one measure is involved. Here, two dimensions and one measure is involved. Therefore, I get a broader perspective and I'm able to compare based on two different dimensions. Let's take for an example. Let me take chairs. I can clearly see by comparing the size of each region is represented by each color. So therefore, by looking at the size of each of the bar, I can clearly see that west Central and East have performed really well for chair subcategory, but Southern region has not performed that well. For supplies, you can see that West has performed the best, but the rest somehow have almost similar values. Therefore, by I'm able to understand for each subcategory how the sales has varied for each region. Therefore, two different dimensions are involved. You must understand one thing when you are adding the second dimension. So here I added region. Add a dimension which does not have many fields. That is, here there are only four regions. But in case I add, let's say, manufacturer, there are too many values under manufacturer. So it becomes really difficult to compare. Therefore, the best practice is when you're creating a stack chart, do an analysis. When you do an analysis, better use the secondary dimension. It's better if it has minimal number of unique fields. The next chart is also under the bar chart family. This one is called the side by side chart. Here I'm using one dimension, but I'm taking two measures, profit and sales. Why I use the side by side chart? I am able to compare between two different measures. In single chart, I am able to see how the sales and profit both have been. This side by side chart is the exact opposite of the stacked chart. Here, two dimensions are involved and one measure is there. Here, two measures are involved for one dimension. Here I compared the sales for two dimensions. Here I am comparing the profit and sales for one single dimension. So let's look at an example. If you take the table subcategory, I can clearly see that the sales has been pretty decent, but the profit has been in negative. So it hasn't performed really well. Same way, I can look at the chairs and I can see the sales has been really high, but relatively the profit has not been that high. Therefore, I'm able to compare two different measures, that is profit and sales for this one same field under subcategory or whichever dimension I'm using. Therefore, if you look at the common point for all these three, I'm comparing the values in terms of absolute numbers. By just looking at the size, I'm able to compare. Like I said, I can, even without displaying the label value, I am able to understand that the sales has been really high for chairs, but the profit has been relatively not that great, or it has been relatively very less. In simple terms, bar chart is used for comparing in absolute numbers. By absolute numbers, I mean the actual values, actual sales, actual profit. Moving on to the next chart, that is the pie chart. Pie chart, we can do the same absolute value comparison, but the more appropriate use case is when you are doing a comparison based on percentage of total. Before that, first you need to understand how a pie chart works. Here, the size of region is what I've used as a dimension, and there are four unique regions. The size of the pie, the angle of the pie, is directly proportional to the sale value. Therefore, when the sale value is high, the angle of the particular region is also higher. When it is low, the angle is less. Now, we are currently viewing in terms of absolute numbers. Let me give you a scenario. Let's take 10 products. Let's say product A has had a sales of 10,000. That's pretty good number. And product B has 12,000. Product C has 9,000. So these are pretty good numbers. So we might be thinking when you're looking at these values that the sale has been pretty good. But if you actually see product D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and so on and so forth, the value is more than 25,000. Therefore, when you are just looking at the product A, you might be thinking this number is high. That is in absolute number terms, it is high. But when you are comparing it with its peers, that is the other fields in the same dimension, it is low, right? Therefore, in that case, the best use case would be to do it in terms of percentage, that is percent of total. But percent of total is like this. Let's take 5 products and the total sales combined for all the 5 products is 100 and the sale of product A is 10. Therefore, the percentage of total of product A is 10 percentage because it has a sales of 10 and the total sales is 100. Now, I can have converted it into a percentage, so I can see that 32 percentage of the total sales comes from west, 17% from south. Therefore, I can have a better and easier understanding. I just won't be driven by the numbers what I'm looking at, but relatively how each field has performed, that is west, south, east, however it has performed. The number can be 10,000, which is high, but if you compare it with its other fields, the same dimension, it would be less. In that case, we would be using percentage of total for comparison purposes. That is, the ideal chart would be, in this case, pie chart. We have a very similar chart, which is the tree map. So, tree map also solves the same purpose as the pie chart. The only difference is pie chart, here the angle of the pie depends upon the measure value. Higher it is, higher the angle. Here for the tree map, the size of the box depends upon the measure value. So higher the measure value, bigger the box size gets. Here also I can compare based on the percentage of total. So that will give me a very good understanding relatively how it has performed with other fields in the same dimension. These both are very similar and have the same use case, but what you need to understand is these two charts cannot show the value for anything that contains negative. For example, you can see here that tables and supply, these two, and also bookcases contain negative value. Now when I try to change it to a tree map, you can see that I'm getting error as 3 negatives. Why so is because, see, whenever the value is decreasing, the size of the box shrinks. It gets lesser and lesser. So when it goes below 0, that means it just disappears, right? When the value is low, it is very small. So when it goes in the negative, it is not even represented because it's insignificant anyway. Therefore, you can only use the pie chart and tree map when the values are positive. If you use anything that contains negative, that particular field alone will be not taken in, that will be excluded. Moving on to the next chart, that is the line chart. Line chart is used whenever a date field is involved. That is when you want to look at a trend. That is what has been the sales for different months, over months, what has been the sales over different years or different quarters, different days. That is wherever a date field is involved, you use a line chart. This is easy for looking at a trend. I can use a bar chart also, yeah, but when you have it as a line, you can look at the trend, how it is increasing and decreasing. But bar chart is best used when you are looking at the just pure comparison and not looking at the trend, how it has increased and decreased for each month. So this is the use case of line chart when you are looking at a particular measure's trend over different timelines. Now I have the sales for different months, fine. But what if I want to know how each region's sales trend is for different months? Now I have added region to the chart and I have each line, for each region. The 4 lines for 4 regions. This is too cluttered. Even though it solves the purpose of looking at the trend, this is too cluttered. It doesn't give a good look. So in this case, we can convert it into an area chart. And this gives a much neater look, much more neat look. Here you can see this is very much similar to the stacked chart, stacked bar chart. So here it is stacked on like a bar, and here it is stacked one above another as a line. So these two are very similar. There are many more charts that I'll be covering later in different video. Hope this was useful to you. Please let me know if you have any feedback. I can incorporate that in the next video as well. Thank you so much for watching this video.